Alright guys, so today I want to show you something called a weather rock, and this is the contraption in its entirety right here. Now this is a fairly primitive and crude version of the device. We'll talk about some of the capabilities, characteristics, and most importantly the modifications that we can do to it so it best suits your needs, no matter what situation you find yourself in. Now first and foremost, let's talk about what it is and what it does. Well, this is a real-time weather data collection and detection device, and what that means, especially in regards to survival, is you'll know exactly what's happening, when it happens, when it comes to the weather and climate. And that kind of information is invaluable. So again, this is a fairly simple and baseline design. We have 3 sticks that make up a sturdy tripod, a bit of cordage strong enough to support and suspend the weather rock that we found. Now the idea here is that all 3 of these materials are primitive. You should be able to scrounge them up, put them together in just about any area you find yourself in. If you can't find one or all of these, you can go ahead and substitute and supplement as needed. If you find yourself in a survival situation, hopefully you're prepared. Maybe you have a Mercury Barometer, or like myself, you carry a digital version. Now what that allows me to do is keep an eye on air pressure. And if I know what the trends are, a lot of times I can predict weather patterns moving in and out of my area. And that kind of information quite literally save your life. Now what you might also notice, if you're out surviving long term, 2 or 3 weeks, your body will actually start to acclimate and adapt. You will develop kind of a sixth sense when it comes to weather pattern change. So we've all seen birds go to ground, animals become scarce hours, if not days, before big storms hit. You will acquire those same senses of a sort, and those are very, very helpful. Now barring these 2 things, the weather rock right here is the next best thing. So let's go ahead and start very basic, talk about what it can do. On to the capabilities of the weather rock. Now take a look at it, and this is at a glance. Now notice that it's very easy to see the stone at this time. It's illuminated, there's nothing obstructing your view of it. Now what that's usually going to denote is that it's daytime. It might seem fairly simplistic, but that is very, very important to know. Now depending on what kind of weather you have above you, it might or might not have a shadow. And notice the absence of a shadow down here. Now what that's telling me is that there's overcast or heavy clouds above us. That's diffusing the light and making it where the shadow is not present. If I have clear skies and a bright sun, a lot of times you'll have that shadow pattern, and it'll actually move across the surface of the ground as the hours of the day pass. And that's one of the ways in which you can go ahead and modify and further calibrate the stone, is that as you watch on those days that are very sunny, you can denote by scratching in or perhaps putting down sticks or stones the hours as they progress on the shadow lines. And over time, with lots of calibration, you can get a better idea of what time of day it is. Now on the flip side, being able to tell it's nighttime, you will not be able to see the stone as well. It's going to be very dark or dim, depending on how much starlight or moonlight you have. Now that kind of obscurity is going to be very, very dark, and knowing what time of night it is difficult. That's definitely a downfall of the Weatherstone. It can't do it all, but it can tell you that it is nighttime hours. Now there are some ways in which the obscurity or the ability to see the Weatherstone might not be nighttime. If you're looking through maybe a white haze, that could be that the clouds are coming down, you're in a bit of a fog bank, and if that's so, you're actually going to find some moisture maybe on the stone, and it might be advisable to stay close to camp, because it's very easy to get lost in those kinds of circumstances. It also might be possible that you're in the middle of a wildfire, or you've simply put your campfire too close to the Weatherstone. Both are very important to know about and to be able to distinguish. Not only is the Weatherstone very handy in determining day from night, and again with calibration on a sunny day, the times of day, it's also very good at detecting airflow. We're talking about the wind. Now every Weatherstone is going to be just a little bit different. The larger the stone, the less sensitive it's going to be to wind and airflow. But being able to read this is very important. Now if the stone is completely still, that's usually going to mean that there is no air movement. Everything's going to be still, the air is dead. A little bit of swaying usually denotes maybe a breeze. Again, every weather rock's going to be a little bit different. This thing can be thrashing all around to the point, really, quite literally, that the tripod is taking off in the air. And in those instances, it's going to be a dead giveaway that you're about to be hit by a hurricane or a tornado. And you need to go to ground, get out of there, get to a safe place immediately. Now again, we can modify this. Perhaps you make the stone into a cup on its side so that it spins with the wind, and in doing so, with calibration, with observation, you can actually get to the point where you can determine air speed depending on how fast that weather stone is actually rotating. One of the other modifications that I like is up here on top. I'll usually leave one of the poles just a little longer, and I will kind of tie on a light piece of material. And in doing so, whenever the wind is blowing, it'll actually billow whatever material I found in the direction of the wind. So that's also very handy. Another very useful feature of the weather rock is its ability to determine what kind of precipitation has been falling from the sky. So whether it's very wet, which usually means it has been raining or is still actively raining, or perhaps it has some pieces of hail or even a sheet of ice over it, a lot of times you can find out what's been happening or what's actively falling from the sky. Now, as far as modifications, a lot of times you can make this very concave, or perhaps you've found a stone that is kind of bowl-shaped, and in doing so, you can actually collect some of that precipitation, so you can actively observe it and definitely find out what it is for sure. You can also further calibrate it by maybe etching lines, denominations as far as volume, and in doing so, you can find out how much precipitation has actually fallen. So very, very useful information. The last characteristic that I want to touch on when it comes to this weatherstone is that of determining temperature. And you can roughly do that by touching your weatherstone. Tactile senses can give you a heck of a lot of data. Now again, every weather rock is going to be different. Different composition, and especially in this instance, different coloration. Now the lighter the stone, the less heat it's going to actually absorb. So even on the sunniest days, it's going to be mildly warm. Now if you're feeling a light colored rock and it's very, very warm, that means you probably want to find some shade and stay hydrated. That can definitely dictate the activities that you have planned for that day. On the flip side, it gets very cold, maybe it has a sheen of ice to it. You might want to stoke up the fire and make sure that you are clothed appropriately. Now I do feel like I need to add this in there for some of the viewership. If it's very, very cold, even icy, I want you to refrain from sticking your tongue to the weather rock. Really and truly, in any instance, whether it's warm or cold, probably want to keep from licking the weather rock. No good data is going to come of that. It's just awkward. So try and resist. But other than that, understand, being able to know the temperature can give you a lot of good information. Alright guys, so this has been the weather rock. Undoubtedly, you'll tell me what you think about this in the comment section below. But I'm interested in your thoughts, any ideas, modifications, further calibrations, and add-ons that you do to this design. It's fairly plug and play, and the sky's really the limit on what kind of data and how accurate your data can be when it comes to this. Now, this is definitely a skill that you want to practice. You don't want your first time using one of these weather rocks to be the survival situation itself. So go ahead and try it out. Compare whatever you're getting as far as readings here to the Weather Channel, things like that. Real-time information, very important. But guys, hope you learned something. Like and subscribe, comment the heck out of it, and as always, until next time. Alright guys, super modification. Again, when it comes to the weather rock, sky's the limit.